Hey guys, my name is CJ Virtusio from Discovery Planet, and for today's vlog we're gonna talk about Intel and AMD processors. So our first question is, what is a PC processor and what does it do? A central processing unit, or CPU, is a piece of hardware that enables your computer to interact with all of the applications and programs installed. So a CPU interprets the programs, instructions, and create the output that you interface with when you're using a computer. So for example, you're using your editing software or application like Adobe Premiere Pro or Magic's Movie Edit Pro or HitFilm or whatever. So whenever you're rendering, exporting, what will happen, it's not just about the memory RAM that eats your workspace, but also it has something to do with your processor. So our next question is, what is processor speed and why does it matter? So computer processor speed, or what we call CPU speed, is one of the most important elements to consider when comparing computers. The CPU is often referred to as the brain of your computer, so ensuring it's working properly is very important to the longevity and functionality of your computer. Understanding what makes a good processor speed starts with understanding what exactly a processor does and what its components do to improve the functionality of your computer. Let's break down the specifics of what makes your CPU fast. Cores versus clock speeds. What makes them important and what to look for when buying a new computer. So processor cores and clock speed are very different functions, but they're working toward the same goal. Many techies talk about which you should give more weight to when buying a computer, but they depend on each other equally to help your computer function at its best. Knowing the differences between the two can help you get a better idea of what each does and what kind of processor speed you need depending on how you're planning to use your computer. If you're planning to use your computer for complex video editing rather than just for standard programs and internet browsing, you will have a different processor, core, and clock speed requirements. So for example, my real life experience that I'm using my computer right now, my specifications of my processor is Ryzen 3 2200G. So it has only a 4 cores and 4 threads. So what happens when I'm exporting some very big file like 3 gig or 2 gig, from what happened, try to open another application like Google Chrome and some other applications like a Valorant game, and what happened is the processors cannot able to interact with other applications fast because the brain or the processor focuses on rendering or exporting on a video editing. That's what happens when your processor's specifications are very low. So those are the things that you need to consider: the cores and the threads of your processor. So processor cores are individual processing units within the computer's central processing unit, which is the CPU. So the processor core receives instruction from a single computing task, working with the clock's speed to quickly process this information and temporarily store it in the random access memory. So what is clock speed? Computer's processor clock speed determines how quickly the central processing unit can retrieve and interpret instructions. This helps your computer complete more tasks by getting them done faster. So faster clock speeds means you'll see tasks ordered from your CPU completed quicker, making your experience seamless and reducing the time that you wait to interface with your favorite applications and programs. So the next question is, how do I choose between more processor cores or higher clock speeds? So as we mentioned before, both processor cores and clock speeds are essential to operating your computer. Buying a computer with multiple cores and a super high clock speed sounds ideal. Basically, having a high clock speed but just one or two cores means your computer will be able to load and interact with a single application quickly. But it's just for a single application only. Conversely, having more processor cores but a lower clock speed means your computer can work with more applications at a time, but each may run a little slower. So now we know the function of the processors. Now our main question is, which one to use, Intel or AMD? So let's check. So now I searched on the internet, and you can also search it on 3dinsider.com/cpu-video-editing. So I scroll down the CPU for video editing in 2020. Now let's see the specs of an AMD Ryzen 9 3950X specs. So it has a 16 cores, 32 threads, 3.5 GHz, a boost clock of 4.7 GHz. Okay. So we're now looking at the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X, which is a competitor for i9-9900K of Intel. And by looking at the specs right now, the AMD Ryzen 9 has a 12 cores, 24 threads, a 3.8 GHz with a boost clock of 4.6 GHz. So now we're looking at the Intel 9th Gen Core i9-9900K, which has a 12 cores, 24 threads, and 3.8 GHz, and a boost clock of 4.6 GHz. So now we can really see the big difference of those two, comparing the Intel and the AMD. I mean the Intel i9-9900K compared to AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. So now we're looking at the other sites where the Intel 9th Gen Core has a 128GB memory capacity and a single threaded workload, while the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X says here supports PCI, outperforms Intel, has 12 cores. So that emphasizes how strong the AMD Ryzen 9 is compared to Intel i9-9900K. So that's it, guys. I hope you learned something from my blog about being techy on the processors, giving you an idea what does processors really do, what's its function, and why do I need to buy this one rather than this one. So giving you an idea on function of the processors can help you determine which one is best for video editing while playing games, or maybe video streaming. So those are the things that you need to consider when buying a CPU or the processor, Intel or AMD. Which one has a better performances? So which one has a better core or clock speed? It's up to you guys. So for me, I would really choose the Ryzen 9 3900X rather than Intel i9 9900K. So again, don't forget to like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, which is Discover Planet, and you can also search on my Facebook page, which is also at Discover Planet PH. And that's all. Thank you. Once again, my name is CJ Vertusho from Discover Planet. Thank you and see you again.